The creativity of people of color has shaped the world. Given the space to flourish, and oftentimes in spite of being denied the space to flourish, the creativity of people of color has transformed the entire world's concept of what's possible. It's certainly what's happened in the game space, and it's a big part of the reason why this expo exists. Now, here in the United States, the connections between black folks and culture can't be denied. And even so, like the relationships of a number of people of color in this country, this relationship is complicated because the relationship between black folks and people of color is complicated. Still, you will continue to see black folks in this country shape our understandings and visions of the past and our hopes for the future. The games from the next two speakers we have on stage will also speak to a past and a future. They're from Black Public Media, an organization that helps black creatives create and share their work. One is a game designer and first-generation immigrant who hopes to apply a new eye with which to look to a Haitian past. The other is an artist and artistic director who is hoping to find an old eye in the future, that old eye being Ancestral Intelligence. Please welcome to the stage the creator of Kiesuye, Dominick, and the creator of Natal Dimension, Jazsalyn.
Hello out there in internet world. My name is Dominick. I hope you all are creating incredible, fantastic games from whatever worldview or perspective you come from. I said my name already, but it's Dom. And this is Worldbuilding Untold Histories, presented by Black Public Media. Shout out to BPM and shout out to you for being here wherever you are. All right. I'm a multimedia artist, and with Jazsalyn, I'm going to be talking about the world I've been building for my upcoming game called Kiesuye, which is based on the Haitian Revolution in 18th century Saint-Domingue. I'm going to be talking a little bit about myself and my game. I'll be showing you a sneak peek of my previous pitch video that I pitched at Pitch Black. And then I'm going to be talking about the challenges I faced in making the world of this game and some of the methods I've used in researching it. I'm a first generation Haitian American born in New York, and I'm working and living in Maryland right now. The top three themes I'd say that come up in my work are art as games and conversely games as art, how to visualize music and a tool that I can use in my music visualizations when I'm listening to music, whether it's pre-recorded or in shows, and sci-fi and fantasy. Here's a sample of my work. Feast your eyes. Go ahead. A lot of reds and yellows and things. This is a sampling from, I'd say, around like 2010 to about 2023. So I think it's a pretty good visual sample. Now, what is Kiesuye, you might be wondering? It is an experimental point-and-click adventure game that is about to go into its second R&D phase. I've been working on it for about, I think, 2.5 years. As I mentioned before, it takes place in 18th century Saint-Domingue, and that is now known as Haiti, in the left half of the Hispaniola island. At this point, I've simplified the characters to 2, as opposed to the 3 that I had originally of the veteran, Vodou priestess, and the cook. And it's being executive produced by Black Public Media, who are keeping my head straight so that my ideas just don't fly into oblivion. The scope creep is very, very real as a game dev, and I learned that every damn day. So in Kiesuye, players will explore the inner world of these aforementioned characters, and I'm working on designing a system of narrative threads that, just like any other game like Skyrim, you can have a main quest or side quests, and I would like to have every portion of the painting world in the game be clickable and lead you into another world, potentially. The narrative style of this game is going to be akin to Disco Elysium mixed with Kentucky Route Zero, but through the aggressive filtering of the Brazilian painter Caribe, Basquiat, and Louis Mailou Jones. It's going to be an atmospheric experience with multiple endings, and I like to think of it as an interactive Caribbean or West African painting. And I'm hoping to make a world where the sky itself can have a conversation with you or be an NPC or the grass or a cup that somebody is holding, which speaks to the non-hierarchical nature of Caribbean art when it's 2D. And yeah, here's a clip of my name is played very quickly. Here's a clip of a pitch video that I made in pitch black. And as I mentioned before, this is previous, so I cut out one character, but this is mostly the soul of what I'm trying to do. Dom Rabran. I'm a digital multimedia artist and the creator of Kies Uye, an experimental art game in which 3 former enslaved Haitians reckon with their newfound freedom. The year is 1801. The small portion of the Caribbean island known as Saint-Domingue is a French colony and home to nearly 500,000 enslaved Africans who once worked in extreme, brutal conditions on sugar, coffee, and indigo plantations. We are 10 years deep into a multi-layered conflict that will come to be known as the Haitian Revolution. Toussaint Louverture, the enigmatic general, has just announced a constitution declaring all former slaves as free people. This is where we begin. Right now, you are in the center of a key moment of the only successful slave revolt in world history. Right now, you are one of the former enslaved who has been freed. In Haitian Creole, Qui est Uye means, who are you? This is one of the many questions you will answer as you choose to play as the wounded veteran who has reservations about the conflict, or the Vodou priestess who has to practice her religion in secret as it is now illegal. What secrets are you privy to as the cook for a wealthy family of black plantation owners? Do you even trust General Toussaint? In Qui est Uye, your actions as the veteran, priestess, and the cook might even put you face to face with Toussaint himself. How lovely, how fantastic, how amazing. It's not weird at all to talk about my own stuff this way. Some of the challenges I've been facing in creating this game have been the vast and overwhelming lack of information on this time period. That's been mostly told by outsiders or what some might consider the victors and heavily biased parties with a negative agenda. And I'm working on telling a not completely historically accurate story, but I'm walking the balance of hard reality versus art, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about in my research methods. And I'm trying to figure out how to wield my artistic license while also staying true and realistic to what happened and what has been documented through oral history and written history and other methods. And it was really important to me that I approach the reality of the violence of what happened during the Haitian Revolution while also avoiding trauma porn and traditional video game styles of violence. As much as I am a fan of violence in video games at times, I think in this game it's going to be different, and I want to somewhat mimic what Disco Elysium did, where I believe in that game you only have one bullet and you play the game for about 60 hours, and that's the kind of world that I kind of want to approach in terms of violence and respect to bodies and the many people who gave their lives for the Haitian Revolution. Similarly, I want to depict Haitian Vodou with as much respect and the non-stereotypical gaze as possible. And it was very important for me to make this game fun so that I'm not alienating players, as easy as that would be, because Haitian Vodou can be very contradictory. Sometimes the Haitian Revolution can be contradictory, but it's important for me to lead with the North Star of this game is going to be fun and interesting. You're going to get in and out probably in about 3 hours, or possibly less, but I don't want to make things too obnoxiously obscure, and I'll leave that for sort of like a museum installation. Some of the methods I've used to research this game have been from many articles in JSTOR and nonfiction, as well as fiction authors like C.L.R. James, like the Black Jacobins, Zora Neale Hurston, and Edwidge Danticat. In the current R&D phase, I'm working on more reading and we'll be creating a game design document for a solid prototype and working with historical and narrative consultants to, again, create the realism of this world so that I can play within it and paint how I can. And to end this, I want to read a quote from Ebba Jantikot's amazing book, Create Dangerously, where she says, Toussaint Louverture in Basquiat's painting reappears with a black hat and a sword in his painting in 1983, Toussaint Louverture versus Savonarola. Here, Basquiat enrolls the Black Spartacus to battle the Italian priest and destroyer of so-called immortal art. Who wins that battle in Basquiat's mind? Perhaps one day this painting may inspire some type of avant-garde video game. Wink. All right. Yeah. Hey, Jazsalyn, what's up, my friend?
That was amazing. How do you feel?
I feel so glad that I'm done with the talking portion of this. And even, talking through that, I feel I just get more and more excited about this game, even though some days I'm like, what the hell am I doing? You know?
Yeah, likewise. I feel like that leads me to the first question I want to ask you. It's a question that I get asked myself, which is a big question, but what made you choose game design as a medium to tell the story?
I love games. I think I remember so many mediums touching me as a kid, like anime, cartoons, movies, and music. But games like my Sega Genesis, I remember like picking up that controller and playing Sonic. It was so influential on me. And throughout the years, some of my most powerful experiences with storytelling and any art have been from video games. However, I found that I've not seen myself in games. I've not seen my story or the story of my immediate or distant ancestors in games, period. So it's important for me to just make my little attempt that I can into this realm. And I think I also love Caribbean paintings, Caribbean and African paintings as I showed earlier. Whenever I look at a painting like that, what goes on in my head is like I'm looking at the guy carrying melons to work, or the woman has a basket on her head, and I'm like, what's her deal? What's her connection with this guy? What's going on with this goat who's just chilling, almost looking like he's smoking a cigarette or something? And I have this conversation going on in my head, and I'm like, okay, well, how can I turn this into a game, and how can I potentially show other folks how I look at these paintings? And maybe this game will encourage people to look at African and Caribbean paintings a different way, and sort of stand in front of there and have a conversation with it. So to make it interactive, make it a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me think about one of the things that you mentioned about the title, actually. And I'm curious if you can elaborate on the title, um, specifically how it's a question about who are you? And then like how does that relate to the way you're approaching character and narrative development, especially for someone who is not of Haitian descent and may not be familiar with this history?
So the big word for me is ontology, which I think I learned like 2 years ago when I was working with a game developer on one of my projects. And when I even before I knew about that word 2 years ago, when I pitched this game to Black Public Media to help me with, it was just a character selection screen. It was just a screen where you would just be going through, let's say, 30 members of the Haitian people who had some part in the Haitian Revolution, and you would get some kind of bio with sort of like, I don't like fighting games, so it would be more like Baldur's Gate in a way, where you're sort of like choosing your class or even your ethnicity. As Saint-Domingue is a super stratified, racially stratified colony. And all of that is really interesting to me. I can think back to my playing all Final Fantasy games. Like my favorite one was 7, and I remember just being so connected to the menu screen. Like when you'd select a character and you would kind of go, like the menu would come up, it would fade it in, and you would see some character like Cloud, and he's just sitting there looking at you through this portrait, and everyone kind of had this somber way of looking at you, and you're going through this menu, meticulously altering what's going on in their lives at the moment. And that I play with that a lot in this animated series I did called Hip Hop RPG, and I'm super interested in what does it mean to be a player choosing to play a character and then altering their stats. What is that back and forth that's happening? And when I introduced the concept of Haitian Vodou into it and Loi's mounting people, I get into a whole nother realm of what gives us the right to even mount players. What does it mean to be a person moving my mouse around and clicking and telling someone to go to point A or B? And that's something that I want to explore. To that end, it was important for me to make Toussaint not a playable character. And I think at this point, I'm not going to make any historical character playable. Just out of respect and sort of how, again, back to the ontology, these are the kinds of questions I want to play with. I don't know that I'm going to come up with an answer, but that's kind of where I'm existing. And I know you kind of deal with the same thing of like, how do we embody characters? What makes us think we can just jump in and out of them so frequently? And like, are we even offering something to them to say like, I respect you for letting me jump around your head and move around, you know?
Well, I think that also comes back to, the creator, the like you of this game and your intent behind it. When someone is embodying a character or and navigating an experience through, through a video game or just any story, you as the creator have some sort of power, of what they are going to gain from that experience and what they're going to learn from that. And that in itself is a mutual offering. It's an exchange that's activated and essentially interactive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's important to respect and engage with that. And also in a very selfish way, I think it's going to make the game more interesting because even a person who has no interest in the sort of spiritual, ancestral respect realm that I'm talking about, I think they'll feel it in the way of how they're interacting with the game. Like I want to play with what is between the cursor and the character you're selecting. I've never seen a game play with that, but I think it's going to lead to some interesting conversations and interactions with the game.
Well, congrats, and I'm wishing you all the best. We're in this program together, um, Black Public Media, so we'll keep seeing each other and supporting each other as we continue to, yeah, develop our work together.
Yeah. Thank you for the questions, Jazsalyn.
Of
Yeah, and I hope
course.
whoever's watching this, I hope you play the game. Follow me on the things wherever. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's some URL somewhere. And yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jazsalyn. As a contemporary artist, my work considers algorithms and game engine as alternative media. And in my practice, I explore memory restoration and new models for data to recover traces of ancestral intelligence. So in this presentation, we will discuss Natal Dimension, which is an ongoing series that travels through different eras in African history to recover the original AI, ancestral intelligence. The multi-dimensional or the multi-level dimensions are channeled through artifacts, sound, and supernatural phenomenon within a cinematic spatial environment. But before I get too deep on this, I want to walk you through a brief journey that I took to get here. So my early intro to sci-fi started with a gang fighting evil by moonlight, winning love by daylight. I was a 90s kid that grew up watching anime and playing RPG video games with my older siblings, but there was always something missing. I started to wonder, where are the Black people? Where are the people who look like me? Seeking alternate Black realities gave me the audacity to hang with the boys and to configure new worlds within spatial environments such as Game Engine. It wasn't until later in life that I discovered Black sci-fi legends like Octavia Butler, who were tapping into ancestral memory and lore, drawing parallels between outer space, aliens, being othered, and the Black experience on Earth as a forum to channel both the past and future through prophetic and cautionary storytelling. These were the seeds for Black Beyond, an experimental project that I've run as the artistic director, an anti and multidisciplinary artist who imagine realities for Blackness. Through Black Beyond, I've designed special projects such as experimental performances for the kitchen, the New Museum's cultural incubator, New Ink, Onyx Studio, and more, such as exhibitions exploring the complexities of various Black meta theories, and a festival imagining Black film futures, the virtual performance, workshops, and new media art. And so the next project that I want to talk about, it teleports us from the continent of Africa into the cosmos, and really was kind of like the early phases of me developing Natal Dimension. So this project is called Reimagine Prototype 002, aka RP002, and it's a 2-channel video installation and a computational study as an attempt to refigure lost indigenous and extraterrestrial memory. RP002 applies computer vision algorithms to juxtapose data archives from African artifacts at the Met, which are displaced from their place of origin, along with data that's collected from various landscapes of Mars from NASA's rover missions. So in this work, I'm considering African artifacts that were taken from their place of origin and parallel to the extreme and sometimes absurd colonization of space. When data from Mars and the continent merges and machine intelligence tries to regenerate the images, it creates this eerie effect of what feels like a memory attempting to take form, but is yet complete. It's just a fragment of what has been lost or stolen. So now that we have some background, we can transition to Natal Dimension. I'll play a brief treatment video created with Black Public Media to gain further support for the project. Are you afraid to die? Are you even alive? Or are parts of you stuck in a future, separate from a past you can't see? My name is Jazsalyn. I am the creator of Natal Dimension, a cinematic game experience that travels through different eras in African history to recover the original AI, Ancestral Intelligence. Natal Dimension is a multi-chapter experience developed in Unreal Engine. The first chapter is a 10-minute journey that can be presented as either a short film or a single-player installation. The prototype on screen took over 200 hours to develop. We need over 500 hours to complete the chapter. As we enter Natal Dimension, our journey begins in space. We navigate the amorphous balls of the nebula Sirius B. Through an out-of-body experience, we confront death. In contact with cosmic forces, we are reborn. Cradle, the first chapter of Natal Dimension, begins in the Danakil Depression in Ethiopia, also known as the Cradle of Life. It explores Sahel mythology, drawing parallels to the region, the astronomy of the Dogon and Mali, and the creation of Earth life through cosmic contact. As a part of the Natal Dimension experience, artifacts as ancestral technology serve as keys within the game environment, opening hidden dimensions to channel ancestral memory. Ancestral intelligence refers to knowledge systems with respect and interconnectedness between human and non-human life forms. Due to centuries of genocide and colonization, our current reality discredits indigenous knowledge and origins of technology. Through Natal Dimension, I'm creating a space to envision a reality based in indigenous knowledge and history, as many origins of current technologies have already existed. There's a breadth of knowledge that could shed light on what we make today, such as new AI models, considering human life in its fullness and how we are further connected to this planet and other species. So scene 1 takes place in outer space, where we encounter cosmic entities in the form of various NPCs. And as a first-person embodied experience, the story places you at the center of each dimensional landscape or supernatural encounter. Like in the treatment, the narrative of Natal Dimension starts off with an intrinsic and existential question about life and death, which is ultimately speaking to our interconnected destiny in relation to each other as a species. Unlike a standard linear game or story narrative, I'm experimenting with moments of interactive dialogue and cutscenes that drive the story forward to create branch and nonlinear outcomes within the open world environment. Another integral aspect of Natal Dimension are the landscapes. So as mentioned, like the first chapter takes place in the Danakil Depression in Ethiopia, which is also referred to as the Cradle of Life. And the extensive research of the landscape went into the development game process to recreate and design the spatial environments. So still a work in progress, but as you can see here, I use textured painting tools within Unreal Engine to achieve a photoreal visual and cinematic effect. And within the landscapes of Natal Dimension, the different forms of ancestral intelligence are represented as spiritual entities that are within the landscape, as well as historical artifacts, which, as mentioned, they serve as these server or storytelling agents within the open world environment to open up dimensions to different eras and locations within the continent. So far, the prototype for Natal Dimension has been demoed at New Ink's Festival Demo, and it's been presented in a lecture format at Creative Time and the New Museum. And it's currently transitioning from phase 2 pre-production to full production. So yeah, if you want to keep in touch, feel free to follow, uh, on the screen. I have my @ I also have my email if you want to reach out if you'd like to talk and support the project, or hear about, yeah, just like things that I'm developing in more detail. But for the sake of time, I'll pause for a quick Q&A with Dom.
First off, fantastic. I wish I could just hit a button and just have like ethereal clapping, like the sounds of universes smashing together and just like a clap button. I would do that if I could, but I cannot. So ontology, I want to talk to you about. The the being who's who is embodied by the camera. I'm like what we're looking at on the screen right now. I've been curious pretty much from day one of how have you approached the being or the entity or perhaps non-entity interacting with these artifacts, and what is that? What has it been like designing that narrative?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Because I've definitely been thinking about these supernatural, entities, phenomenon that's happening throughout the experience as maybe like more so like external NPCs that you would engage with, not necessarily thinking about, who you are embodying. I'm definitely leaving that up to interpretation. Um, but what I do hope that, you know, someone who's interacting with this experience, what they're able to gain from it. Um, as I mentioned in the video, is that I'm really trying to emphasize this like I guess like this level of interconnectedness and appreciation, especially for different forms of intelligence, whether that's, human or non-human.
As we dive into the I don't know, exponentially changing world of AI, I feel like projects like this are it's almost like when you get an ice pick and you're climbing a mountain and you just kind of you have to and you're falling. I feel like we're cascading down some and you're this project is kind of like stabbing into the walls and you're like, hold on, like let's make sure that this isn't lost. And I feel like in some ways, this concept of ancestral intelligence and indigenous knowledge is kind of it kind of can't be seen by AI right now, or at least LLMs, simply because we don't have a lot of information, and because I would imagine that the folks who have been designing a lot of these LLMs kind of don't care about this kind of thing. So, can you talk a little bit about where you think your progress fits within the canon of AI? I don't know if that makes sense, or canon of AI and how we're moving towards that right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a driving force behind this project and my intent. Um, I definitely, and I mean, that's why I chose game design as a medium. In addition to that being a part of my childhood, right? but there's there's a large group. I want to say most of the people developing AI don't look like you and me, and they are a small group of people. That, in regards to who exists and lives in this world. And I think a part of breaking down those barriers is finding new ways to communicate those topics. So thinking about how can conversations regarding AI development, how does that translate to an experience that you can navigate through game design? But also looking at it from another angle, ancestral intelligence, which is, yeah, the original intelligence, and ancestral intelligence isn't just like, it's not just limited to a human experience, if we're thinking about, us being a part of a larger ecosystem. And also going, my answer to your question could go on and on.
It's great.
Um,
Keep going. It's good. I like it.
Thank you. Yeah, like just thinking about like ancestral intelligence as an umbrella, but then how you have indigenous knowledge systems that also exist underneath that as well. And in that regard, how there's a common value amongst like amongst different types of indigenous knowledge systems, that is considering this state of or just like the interconnectedness of all different types of species and different forms of life. And thinking about like, okay, what if there are new AI models that are created based off of that, opposed to the more extractive models that that are more prevalent today.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about these kinds of things, I think about sort of this classic anthropologist going into some sort of untouched, undiscovered part of the land and talking to a shaman and being like, "Tell me about this plant," and the shaman is like, "Oh no, this is." I mean, it like has a name for it that implies that we're no different from the plant, which is mind blowing and very different from what you're talking about. This extractive, I'm here and this thing is here, that kind of thinking. And to that end, I mean, the video game industry is probably soaked in that too, in terms of how we interact with games as characters and even as players, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm curious for you to unpack that last bit a bit more. Just elaborate on what you mean by that.
I have no idea what I'm talking about. No, I'm kidding. So when you talk about a first person game or a narrative, to me it's like a camera is being implanted in a character's head, like Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, and then you run around. Oh, I guess it's technically third person. So in a game like yours, take something like Doom, for instance. You're being put in the Space Marine's head, and then you move around and shoot the aliens who are not you. You have to kill all the aliens
Mm,
because they're not you, and they need to be put
hmm
down. But
mm,
I would imagine in a game like Natal Dimension, you're probably going to be considering everything. It looks like the environment is a part of what it could be a part of you as well. These artifacts, it's another question I had for you is like, are you interacting with these artifacts as when we talk about NPCs, right? Usually it's like I talk to a guy, he wants me to find 10 goats. I give him 10 goats and we go to the next area. But how have you been designing these artifacts as NPCs? How are you looking at that?
well, so I guess you can kind of see within the scene that keeps looping, there's like this orb that's glowing. And
Yeah.
mind you, this is just a prototype. But yeah, it is kind of like this interconnected experience where like you encounter or you engage these different entities or artifacts that are within the environment. And I feel like it's like you're having a conversation with it. And like as you encounter them, you learn more about yourself and you learn more about how you are connected with your environment that surrounds you. And like I said, I'm very much in the development process in regards to the narrative, nonlinear narratives and like what happens based off of different decisions you make within the game experience. But I am hoping that I can achieve like you'll have the opportunity to make these decisions and that'll have an outcome, right? Various outcomes. And my hope is that through these outcomes, they influence your actual like day-to-day life behavior, or it changes at least like your perspective. So like I feel like I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I am thinking about like there being like more I guess positive outcomes than others based off of certain like decisions that you could make throughout the experience. And realizing like how that could either be beneficial for um us as a species or how it could be detrimental.
I mean, you're asking big questions like, are you afraid to die? Which as I've told you before, I love that kind of thing. But I mean, these questions seem to be embedded in traditional games, even down to something like Mario. Like, you don't want to step on the turtle because that means you got to go all the way back. But you're directly asking that with these beautiful words, without having this thing that's running out and trying to stab you. It's like, let's just get down to that thing. Do you want to continue? Which I think I would love to see what your the death or failure sequence looks like in your game, because I imagine it'll be probably different from anything we've seen. So I'm just really excited to see more of what you come up with this.
Thank you. I can't wait to share it in all of its many stages and iterations.
Thank you so much for those talks, Dom and Jazsalyn. For as many things as games have done already, sometimes I look and I'm just like, yo, games are just getting started. And I'm so excited to see what comes next. And I genuinely believe that it's going to be the influences of BIPOC folks that really help continue to push this industry and this media forward. So thank you for sharing those works. But also, thank you for sharing the complicated questions that come with them as well. How do we create a view of a Haitian past when we know that many of the source materials that we would use for reference have been lost to time or destroyed? Can we create a AI that is centered on an ancestral intelligence and create an ethical framework? I don't know the answers to those questions, but I'm glad that we're asking them, and I hope that we're all able to find answers together. So thank you again for those talks, Dom and Jazsalyn. If you want to follow them on social media, you can find Dom on Twitter at DomRabRun, and you can find Jazsalyn on Twitter at JazSalyn. Thank you so much.